So I ran across a few articles I wanted to make a video about. The first one here is it's from the bleedingfool.com. China bans girly men and sissy idols and newest censorship laws. Now, obviously, this is not hard to understand why it's troublesome, because number one, it's China, but basically, China is worried that like K-pop guys and J-pop, boy bands and all that kind of stuff are turning China's own men, young men, into girls, into girly men, as they would say. And I don't know if this is BTS. It kind of looks like them. I think I recognize some of the guys, but they all have the same color hair, because usually they'll have it dyed or whatever. Anyway, but it's basically talking about how, like Weibo Corp or microblogging sites suspended thousands of accounts for fan clubs and entertainment news on Saturday. And basically it all has to do with the fact that, like they must resolutely put an end to sissy males and other abnormal aesthetics, according to the TV regulator, who used a disparaging slang phrase, Niang Pao, or literally girly guns, to describe effeminate men. And then they're concerned that Chinese pop stars influenced by the sleek, girlish looks of some South Korean and Japanese singers and performers are failing to persuade China's young men to be sufficiently macho. And it's like, and that's bad news. Regardless of whether or not you think that these guys are girly men or whatever, it's just cracking down on that kind of stuff is bad news. It's like China is like the end game for a lot of the censorship and stuff that's going on in America. And that's why we need to stop censoring as much as we do, and prevent this kind of shit from, gaining a hold. I mean, I don't need to keep, I'll move on to the next story here, because I don't need to keep going on for you to, I mean, hell, I'm sure we all agree that censorship is bad. Censorship sucks. Anyway, I'll go ahead and move on. The next story is from Bounding into Comics. It's Dune screenwriter John Spates explains why Liat Kynes is race and gender swapped in Denis Villeneuve's upcoming film. This is what she looks like, which, by the way, this entire cast got hell because they're not dark enough. Oh, she looks pretty dark to me. She's pretty. I mean, but, I'm not one of those types who's bitching about her not being dark enough. I think it's stupid that she was race and gender swapped, but okay. Anyway, they're talking about, well, here was the first look, a role previously depicted by a white man. And then here's what she's saying. She keeps peace amongst many people. Women are very good at that, so why can't Kynes be a woman? Why shouldn't Kynes or whatever, be a woman? But anyway, oops. The original novel, and it goes on to how Frank Herbert described him and stuff. And it really gets down here. This is that guy, the screenwriter. Herbert's novel is, to some extent, an artifact of his time, and it definitely skews male in ways that don't feel completely contemporary now. Of all the messages in the story, the message about Liat Kynes, the planetary stewardship of the preciousness of resources, of the necessity of building bridges to local communities, sustaining ourselves going forward, yada yada yada. Those are modern messages, and it seemed right to modernize the messenger. YouTuber Nerd Cookies reacted to his comments, and then she basically just takes it apart. Basically saying, she completely disagrees with his thoughts about it being outdated. It's, she thinks they're timeless. It's not presented as utopian society. In many cases, the men who serve as the leaders of the universe turn out to be failures or end up becoming tyrants. Just gives more examples and she'd do a much better job of it, basically, because she's a lot more knowledgeable on the book than I am. I'm just, basically parodying what she's saying, essentially. But anyway. And here's the entire, which, by the way, this is the group that was getting hell for not being dark enough. And it's like, man, get the hell out of here, dude. Look how many people of color there are. Half the cast, almost. I mean, well, basically half if you do, if you count them all. But anyway, and it just goes on, and she basically wraps up by saying the fact that John Spates thinks he can come in and alter the author's work to make it better or to make it more contemporary just screams arrogance to me, which it does. That's absolutely right. And his assessment of the character comes off short-sighted and lacks the nuance of the author's work. Batista's also in the movie too. So I'll go ahead and move on. But yeah, it's arrogant to say that, and it's like, dude, you can't justify it with this bullshit. It's contemporary. The third story is another bounding in the comics.com story. The Mandalorian actress Emily Swallow discusses Disney's firing of Gina Carano. She played the armorer in 3 episodes, and basically, I'll give her credit because for one, she at first talked about how much this is just explaining why Gina got fired, which is complete bullshit and nonsense. How the fuck are you gonna sit there and and this is her actual post, and it's like, how is this hateful in any way? If anything, it's speaking out against hate. Now you can sit here and say it's kind of clunky that you should never compare anything to the Jews, what the Jews went through and such, with the Nazis and all that. That's the worst you could do. That's the most you could say about it is that it was a clunky analogy and that you shouldn't do it. It's kind of like when people want to protest or kneel or whatever during the national anthem. No matter what you're doing that for, it's people are still going to be upset. You could be protesting childhood cancer and people still get upset if you kneel during the national anthem or whatever. Just because it is what it is. So I mean, that's the worst you could say about what Gina said. But anyway, of course, Chapek got asked a question at the shareholders meeting, and he just dodged it. He didn't even answer it. You can see his response right here. I don't really see Disney as characterizing itself as left leaning or right leaning, yet instead standing for values that are universal, values of respect, blah, blah, all that kind of just bullshit, word salad. And it's like, man, motherfucker, you ain't said shit. So you didn't answer the question. But anyway, Swallow had high praise for Carano. She goes on and talks about how she's very giving, very gracious and stuff. And then when, while she revealed that she doesn't have any inside scoop on how the firing went down. Which, of course, I mean, I doubt she would anyway. But then she would address the cancel culture, saying, I'm thoroughly baffled by a lot of what we're dealing with right now with cancel culture, and I think that it's, oh man. And it's probably, for her own career, she's not wanting to wade too far into it, probably. But anyway, which I don't really blame her. I mean, yeah, we all need to speak up and speak out about it, but it's, I don't know. But, which by the way, here's a thing. Freddie Prinze Jr. appears to admit to participating in an online cancel culture mob against Gina Carano. Thanks, Freddie. But anyway, she talks about there's so many layers to it that are important to look at, but I think that the hatred that comes into it when people start refusing to listen to the other side, no matter which side they're on, I think that's really dangerous. That's very well said, and that's absolutely true. That's one thing that is undeniable, that these crazy lunatics, and they're on both sides, but you see them more on the left, I suppose, but at least in my opinion, I might be a little biased. I see it all everywhere, but I see a lot more coming from the left side. Anyway, we can hear things that we don't like, and we can disagree, and that's fine. Exactly. And there we go. I'll go ahead and wrap this up. Oh, damn, I'm going about 8 minutes. It's like I give her credit for saying this because she went a lot further than other people. She made sure to praise Gina as a good person. But anyway, like I said, I'll wrap this up here. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.